Hi, I'm Alicia,
And I'm Matt.
and today we are going to talk about a topic that nobody is really that interested in thinking about, and that is getting lost in the woods. Obviously, I am not really prepared to be out on a hike or in the wilderness. I have no hat. My jacket is very sad. I'm wearing sweatpants. My gloves are not prepared for this. I am in no way prepared to be out here. And we often like to think that we're the kind of people that are always prepared for everything, especially if we're people that like to be outdoors, that have a farm, that homestead, that do any of these things. We think, well, we're never going to be caught unprepared because we're always prepared. But we are human. And there are always moments in time when we do things that we don't think about. So maybe you might be on a hike and you might wander off a trail. Maybe you might be on your own property and all of a sudden be like, hey, I don't remember anything around me. So this video is going to hopefully help you provide some tips and information if you find yourself in a situation where you are suddenly lost in the woods. And I think the first thing to remember is if you are in an area, let's say that you wander off a hiking trail and all of a sudden you're like, hey, I don't recognize this place, that you stop. Wandering around, running around screaming, running in circles, even though I like to do that sometimes, is not productive. Panic burns energy, and you don't want to burn your energy wandering around or taking yourself further into a dangerous situation. So the very first thing to do is stop. Possibly even sit down, especially if you're tired or if you're confused or if you just start to feel really afraid. Just take a moment and regroup. The second thing you should do is think. When was the last time that you remember where you were? Do you have anything on you? Do you have a compass? Is your cell phone connected to anything? Is there anything you can do right now to figure out where you are in a quick and easy way? And then just pause. Pause to regroup, pause to regather, and make a plan for the next few steps. It doesn't have to be a plan for hours. It doesn't have to be a plan for days. Just how are you going to get through the next 30 minutes to begin to figure out what your plan overall is.
All right, so one of the first things that you're going to need to decide once you've come to the realization that you're lost, do I stay put or do I keep moving? Now, if you've already taken that pause, collected your thoughts, got through that panic period, and you're not just moving in circles, you need to have that honest decision. Do you keep moving or do you stay put? 9 times out of 10, if somebody knows where you are, if you're on your own property, if you've told somebody where you're going, you should just stay put. If, however, you're out of food, you haven't told anybody where you're going, you decided to go do an ultramarathon hike, and you didn't tell anybody you were leaving, nobody knows where to find you, so you do need to make a decision to move, pick a direction, and keep going in it. But 9 times out of 10, if you're on your own property or you're doing a day hike, you're not doing anything extreme out in the middle of nowhere, you're better off to stay put, make yourself known, make yourself comfortable, and don't waste your energy.
One of the excellent points that my Matt made in the last portion of the video was that you need to make yourself known. And that is a very, very critical part of being lost in the woods. If you're out here and no one can find you, you have to make sure that people can find you. I'm pretty good at making myself known. But part of this planning goes into when you're going out in the woods to begin with. Even if you're just going for a day hike, make sure to do something like bring a whistle. If you're going out for longer periods of time, maybe think about bringing a flare gun or something else. Always dress in bright clothing. Do the exact opposite of doing what I am right now. Wear a bright bandana, wear a bright hat, wear an orange vest. Something that makes you stand out from the world around you, because if people are looking for you, whether by air or by foot, they're going to be looking for exceptions to the landscape. If you blend in, then nobody's going to be able to see you. The other thing that you might want to do is make some noise, but make noise in a way that seems unnatural. Like if you have a whistle, blow it 3 times, and do that in a kind of random way. So don't just kind of do it 3 times and then never do it again. Do it 3 times, wait 10 minutes, blow it 3 times. Just try to be consistent about it in a way that would seem unnatural to people. Something else you can do, and not to an extent that makes you exhausted or that depletes your reserves, is just yell, be loud. in a way that other people can hear you. And do that in odd number of times, 3 or 4 times in repetition, so that people know that it's not just part of the natural noises. So that if they're looking for you, then you stand out and it's easier for them to find you. Done. I'm so cozy. I love this. This is awesome. I like our little rock hole.
All right, so you've made the decision that you need to stay put. It's getting late and you need to find some shelter. The most dangerous thing when you're out in the wilderness, if you get lost, is the elements. More than food, more than dehydration, you have to protect yourself from the elements. Now, most people who are just going out for a casual walk, a day hike, they're not going out equipped with a tent or a portable shelter. And to be honest, a debris shelter takes a long time to make. So if you've made the decision that you're staying put and it's noon, you'll probably have it done before nightfall if you've got everything handy. But if you didn't make that decision with plenty of daylight left and you don't have a good knife and a pocket saw with you, the chance of you having a debris shelter constructed before nightfall is very small. So what you're going to look for is you're going to look for something in the terrain that you can use for a shelter. Here we've got this shale rock formation. The wind is coming from behind this rock formation. So this is protecting us from the wind blowing on us, and that wind is going to pull a lot of body heat out of your body. So this is giving us a nice shelter from the wind. There's a nice dry depression down here that's filled with leaves that are on the ground. If you know you're staying the night here, you want to insulate the ground as much as possible. So if I were going to stay here, I would rake a bunch of these oak leaves, make as big of a pile as I can here, and I'm going to burrow into it like a mouse. And there's this shelf here, has a nice depression that I can even go deeper in with my legs and lay here. That way, if it did start raining or snowing on me, I could get almost completely under this rock, and I would just fill this up with leaves and try to insulate it as much as possible and stay out of the weather. One of the things that you do need to worry about if you're sleeping on the ground at night is the ground pulls a lot of heat out of your body. So you need to have a lot more insulation than what you think. If you're using leaves or pine needles, you want at least 12 to 18 inches. That's not a small task, so think ahead if you're going to do that. 18 inches of leaves when your body is laying on it is much different than 18 inches of leaves when you've just fluffed them up on the lawn for your kids to play in. So pile it up this high and then pack it down with your body weight. But it's going to be a task, but you want to make sure you have that insulation or you're going to freeze at night. If you've got the ability to make a fire, absolutely make a fire. Not only is that going to keep you warm, but it's going to serve as a signal. I mean, if somebody's looking for you at night, whether it's with their eyes or with thermal scopes, a fire is going to appear on that. It's much easier to see a fire at night than a person laying on the ground. So keep that fire going, and if it's a choice between keeping a fire going and sleeping, if you've only been out for the day so far, keeping warm with that fire is going to be more important than getting 8 hours of sleep. If you have to stay up all night sitting in your shelter feeding twigs to a little fire to keep your hands warm and to keep your body heat up, absolutely do that. It's going to feel better than if you lay on the cold ground, even with your leaves, and had uncomfortable broken sleep, and then you wake up in the morning with your body frozen. So your sleep is not going to be your priority, keeping warm is. And that also goes to, if you can't find a shelter, if you didn't happen to find a nice little cave here to crawl into, you may be better off standing up, pacing around a tree that you can keep from out of the wind and the rain, and just standing and moving your body as opposed to sitting still on the ground losing body heat. It's choices that you're going to have to make. It may be uncomfortable, but you're not planning to live out here for 6 months without sleep. You're just trying to get through the night until you can get some help. So that's my little brief on keeping warm overnight with your little shelter. And Alicia is going to take the next section of this.
And one of the things that oftentimes people forget in these moments, or when they're preparing these moments, thinking about these moments, writing or doing videos, is there is a psychological aspect to this. It's scary to be in the woods by yourself in the dark. The coming of night was terrifying for our ancestors, which is why we lived in groups and why fire was so precious. That nightfall is going to be scary, no matter how prepared you are, no matter how much you've been in the woods. Unless you are truly a person that is out there all the time, you're going to experience fear, you're going to experience worry. And the important part is to continue to stay calm and not ruminate on negative things. Repeat over and over to yourself that you're safe for the moment. People are coming. Things are going to be okay. You might not know that for 100% certain, but it's better not to panic. It's better not to get lost in sadness or fear. That's not going to be productive, and that's not going to help you stay safe, and it's not going to help you stay alive.
One of the big things that you see about on a lot of outdoors videos, survival videos, is food and water. And I kind of mentioned that a moment ago. Your biggest concern should not be food and water. It should be protection from the elements. Right now, we're now just sitting on top of our rock. And now that we're in the wind, instead of blocking the wind with the rock, it's suddenly much colder. So protection from the elements is really your number one. You can survive, I don't remember what it is. I think they say it's 3 days without water, but that's very environmentally dependent. 3 days out here in Pennsylvania is going to be much different than 3 days without water if you're in sub-Saharan Africa. Okay, so take that with a grain of salt. You can make it at least 2 days without water, all right? You can make it 2 weeks without eating anything, especially if you're already at a healthy weight. You do have stores on your body. It's not dire for you to eat something. So food and water are not emergencies. Staying warm and being found are your main concerns. But let's just cover the food and water aspect of that real quick. First of all, food. If you brought something with you, it's quite honestly a personal preference. If you just want to save it for when you're hungry and eat it and satisfy yourself for one moment, or if you want to ration it. But if you have some food with you, gum, hard candy, anything that's going to put a flavor in your mouth to kind of satisfy the desire to eat and drink something, by all means. The same if you have any water. I would recommend you ration water or fluids that you have a little bit more. If you've got a water bottle, don't chug it all at once, because then you don't have any left when your mouth gets dry. Take some sips on it just to keep your mouth moist, because that's one of those things that triggers the instinct in your body to drink fluids is when your mouth is dry. So if you keep your mouth moist, you can kind of stave off that desire to drink something, especially if you're having to ration it. Do not eat random things you find in the woods. Because, as I said, you can survive for a week to 2 weeks with no health side effects, not eating anything. You can go 14 days and eat nothing, no calories at all. You won't have any health effects if you're a normal, healthy person. Eating an acorn or a random berry or a mushroom because you saw it on a YouTube video, it has 0 calories at all. By the time you got that acorn open, you've already burned more calories than it had. That mushroom is only a flavoring that you can buy at the supermarket. It doesn't have enough calories to sustain you. The same with most plants. There are lots of edible plants. Most of them have no calories at all. They have some vitamins in them, but you're not going into vitamin depletion, mineral depletion, if you've been out in the woods for 48 hours. So the chances of you eating something that's going to make you sick, and it doesn't have to be poisonous to make you sick. It could be something that your body is not used to digesting. On paper, scientifically, it's completely edible, but if you've never eaten a handful of dandelions before, it's going to make you sick. They taste terrible. Your body's not used to digesting them. So don't stress about food. If you absolutely know what a strawberry or a raspberry looks like and you find some raspberries and it's near where the area where you're staying put, eat some raspberries. But don't go foraging through the woods trying to find edible lichen and mushrooms, because you're going to burn energy. You're going to pull more fluid out of your body digesting these things because they don't have moisture in them. And you have a higher potential to get even more lost and turn around foraging through the woods where you're already lost. So don't do that. Don't go foraging. And the same for hunting, because I know that's a big thing on the survival sites. I'm going to set up my Paiute figure 4 trap, and look, I've got a field mouse. Clearly I can feed myself for 9 months of the winter trapping field mice. No, you can't. There's almost no calories in it. You're only out for a short time because you're planning on getting rescued, not starting another colony somewhere. And just to make it, the best comparison I've ever had for this was, should you take food with you or should you take ammunition for a gun that you have on? And gram for gram, a gram of instant mashed potatoes by weight has more calories than a squirrel that you could get with your 22 shell by weight. So that 22 in mashed potato weight, even if you could get a squirrel, that squirrel has less calories than a 22 bullet worth of weight of instant mashed potatoes. So you're better off carrying snacks than carrying snares and 410 shells to go hunt squirrels and mice in the bushes, okay? Just carry snacks with you. It's gonna be safer, and you're gonna make it to getting out, and then you'll have a real meal.
I like the carry snacks philosophy because that's what I would do naturally.
And I know water is the next one. You can make it a couple days without water. There's some tricks that I will do another video on just to keep some moisture in your mouth that you can do if you have water in you, and you absolutely should bring water with you when you're going out. Just sip on it to keep moisture in your mouth. Do what you can to ration that water, but unless you're prepared to filter water that you find, do not drink water that you find.
Drink puddles.
Don't drink puddles. Even running water streams are mostly contaminated now, especially if you're in a residential area. I have drunk out of streams when I go on long distance hikes. I also accept the consequences that you can get sick from that. I haven't, fortunately, but it's definitely not something I'm going to recommend to you. If you see a running stream, yes, it's possible that you can drink out of it. And again, I'm not going to tell you not to. Try to drink where you see it running. Try to drink when there's no debris. Don't stir stuff up from the bottom because there is sediment, and if there's farm country around, you have an idea of what the sediment is made out of. Don't drink from still water. There's a pond not far away from us here. It's, even in the winter, it's undoubtedly has microorganisms in it, and your risk for dehydrating yourself by getting sick drinking water that has microorganisms in it is going to exponentially dehydrate you more than you just not drinking water. If you're on day 4 and nobody has found you, there's things you can do to filter that water to make it drinkable. But again, in your first day out, don't be wandering around panic drinking from puddles and then putting yourself in a worse situation. Just stay put, relax, deal with the situation, and think about getting found.
Which leads us into some common mistakes to avoid. And obviously one of the first ones is panicking, and we've talked a lot about that. Don't panic, don't run around in circles. Becoming hysterical is not your friend. You want to remain calm, keep your wits about you, think through the situation. Also, don't try to push through exhaustion. If you're tired, if you need to take a rest, sit, rest, and relax. Don't continue to walk, run, whatever it is that you're doing if you are already tired. That's just going to further deplete your energy, further deplete moisture, further make you feel hungry. Even if you don't need to eat, we are human beings, and so the psychological aspect of this is important. You sitting there feeling hungry because you walked 50 miles is not going to help you get found, and it's not going to be productive. Also, one of the biggest things that can help you in a situation is this. It's your cell phone. So don't spend the first 3 hours that you are lost in the woods doing things that are going to deplete your battery. You don't know what's going to happen. You might get a cell signal. If you have a cell signal, try not to call, text people. Text them your location or where you think you are. Text them the time you left. Text them what time it is now. Just try and get information to people who might be able to help. And at the very least, send a text that says, "I'm lost, send help," or something that can give someone some information about how they might be able to reach you.
And some other important tips on that is I take my cell phone out when I go overnight camping or hiking. And sometimes I forget to bring an extra battery or a solar charger or whatever. But if you're lost, you're probably not going to have those things. So once you realize that you are not where you need to be and that you're going to be out there longer than what you had planned on, shut off every app that you can, put it on low power mode, put it on airplane mode, and then if you have a signal, send your location, a map pin, something to somebody that will check their phone, send a pin to it, see if it gets sent, and then shut your phone off. When you have a chance to turn your phone back on to see if somebody has responded or if you have a signal, if it hasn't sent, it's going to continue to try to send, or you'll get your reply back. But you don't want to be constantly checking it, looking for a reply that may or may not come in. And another thing, keep your phone up against your body in a pocket where it's warm. The cold is going to deplete your battery, even if it's in the front pocket of my jacket. The cold has sucked the battery life out of my phone. When it was 100%, it's gone to nothing. So keep it against your body so your body can keep it warm, keep it dry, and keep it off. That way you preserve that battery life for as long as you can, because you may need it. You may get service. You may get a response back. You may be able to pull up your GPS map and find your location, because a lot of times the GPS on the phone, it runs off the GPS satellites and not cell phone service. So you may be able to, it's not going to give you directions out, but you can see the pin where you are, and you can maybe scroll out and see if there's a road, a river, or something that you can walk to.
And I think one of the things you also wanted to talk about was the continuing debate around whether or not you should stay put or whether or not you should flee for your life.
Yes, I have strong feelings about this, but obviously I'm not most people. I like to go out in the woods. I like to go winter camping by myself. I am better about telling people when I go out now than I used to be. But there have been enough stories, and there was one not long ago where a woman was hiking the Appalachian Trail. She got off the trail, and I forget what it was, a storm or something drove her off the trail. The Appalachian Trail through Maine is hardly marked. It's very easy to get lost on. She got off the trail, and she stayed put. She stayed put for weeks, and she starved to death. And she was found years later. They found her campsite. She was keeping a journal, and it's just a heartbreaking story because she stayed put and she was not found. So there's a couple things to think about. If you're on day 3 and there's been no sign of anybody coming through, you don't have a cell phone signal, your cell phone is dead, you haven't heard search parties or vehicles or helicopters, if you spent a sufficient amount of time and you need to get out of there, you need to make the decision to move, pick a direction, and stick to it. Now, that's something else we can talk about, how you do that. But another situation where you might want to move is if you're familiar with the area where you're lost on. So let's say we're lost here. I know that I'm going to pretend that I'm turned around here, but I know that on one side of this property, running the complete length of this property, there is a road. On the other side of this property, there's other private properties and there's ATV trails on. So I can confidently say that if I picked a direction, and even if it was the wrong direction, and continued to walk in that direction, I would eventually hit a road or an ATV trail or a farm field where it's going to be easier to see your location. So if you have, call them guardrails, terrain guardrails, if you know that the area you're on has a road on one side of it, or a river on one side, or railroad tracks, you can confidently pick a direction to go in, and maybe you hit that road 5 miles away from where you parked your car, but you can still go in that direction and get to a road and get out faster than if you stayed put and suffered through 2-3 nights of being cold and hungry. It's just something to keep in mind when you're going out. Know the terrain, at least look at the map and see the big landmarks around, where roads are, where bodies of water are, things like that, so you can say, oh, the sun's over there, it's noon. Well, that doesn't help. It's 5 in the afternoon, sun is over there. I remember what's kind of the west of that property.
And you made a good point too, that if something happens on your own property, like let's just say maybe you get injured or something like that, if I was in the backyard for long enough, there might be a time if he were away where nobody would come and find me. They wouldn't think to. So there are definitely circumstances where staying put is not necessarily your best option.
And that really depends on how many people you have coming over to your house.
With us at 0.
If you have
die
regular guests coming over to your house, they may be concerned if you didn't hear from you for 3 days. in our case,
3 months later, I'd still be in the backyard wandering around.
now if she's in the other room for 10 minutes, I'll go looking for her, but
If
if
we're
we're both
gone.
lost together, there's nobody coming to find us other than the dogs.
And a final point is pay attention to your terrain too. And this seems obvious and kind of silly, but right now we're in an area that is very mountainous. There's a lot of cliffs and steep hills and gradients to walk up and down. And if you're just wandering around blindly, you might trip and get further injured. Breaking an ankle in the middle of nowhere when you're all by yourself is not fun. And this is true for any terrain, whether you're in the desert, whether you're, who knows, in any place. You should really pay attention to the world around you and make sure that you understand what you're walking through. And also sounds silly, but paying attention to the weather is good. If you're sitting outside and all of a sudden storm clouds are gathering, that's something that you might want to take note of, because what happens if it rains? Things like that. Anything else to add about that?
No, I think you hit it all.
You did great. Well, thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it, and we hope to continue on with more videos that might be helpful or useful, and we are thankful for every single one of you. I think we did such a great job.
We need outro music.
We do need outro